This slideshow looks at a number of artists who are particularly well known for using collage in their work. You'll want to make notes on their work and the characteristics of their collage work, and also hopefully you'll be showing an increasing ability to take high quality notes, and you may want to write information on the next page in your sketchbook also, as well as writing down information about the artist and their work. You'll want to listen out for key terms related to collage, words like decoupage and assemblage and photo collage, etc. So the first thing you'll want to do is split the opposite page up into 8 sections, 2 columns and then 4 rows, in which to write down the terms which come up in this video. Now don't worry too much if you don't complete all of the information, because you can either re-watch the video or look up the terms afterwards. In addition to that, you may want to take your notes in pencil, so at the end you can add to them and correct them and write them out neatly in pen after you've done any additional research you may want to do. So what we'll do now is we'll pause the video so you can write down these key terms and split up the page in your sketchbook. So if we look at a definition of collage, and this definition comes from the Tate Gallery website, it describes collage as both a technique and the name for the resulting piece of artwork, in which pieces of paper, photographs, fabrics and other ephemera, in other words, anything in fact, can be stuck onto a surface, it doesn't need to be paper, to create a collage. This first artist we are going to look at is an American conceptual artist and collagist, in other words, someone who produces collages. Her name is Barbara Kruger. Barbara Kruger is frequently also described as a feminist artist, and her work often highlights issues of women's rights and equality. So you might now want to pause the video and think about what this work means. If you look at this first piece, it says, "It's a small world," in reference to the fact that men have had more opportunities and freedoms than women. But then at the bottom, Kruger makes a further point saying, it might be a small world, but not if you have to clean it. Kruger trained as a graphic designer before computers were used, so her work gives the impression that pictures and text are used or cut out separately and arranged. She is well known for these black and white powerful images that she selects and then adds captions, often in red and white. These works are often very large, sometimes the size of billboards. The text she uses is also distinctive, and you might recognize it as being a Futura or a Helvetica typeface. These next 3 pieces are by the British artist David Hockney. He started as a British pop artist but has changed his style and experimented with different materials throughout his career. This is an image of Hockney himself. In the early 1980s, he started to produce photo collages, using an instant Polaroid camera firstly, sticking the images together to show multiple viewpoints of the same person or object. This is Hockney's mother, who he also painted and drew quite often. Hockney also produced landscapes made up of many photos joined together to give the impression of a wide-angle camera. He called these works his joiners. The next artist is Hannah Höch, who was a German artist born in 1889. She was part of the Dada art movement. These were artists who rejected logic and reason in their work. The work is nonsensical and irrational. There are different stories of where the term Dada comes from. Some say it's based on a child's first words that also don't make sense. Another story is one artist slid a knife into a French dictionary and the word Dada came out by random. Hannah Höch's work is often political. She produced photo montages where pictures and images, often from newspapers and magazines, are cut out and rearranged in very illogical ways. It's very difficult to find a clear meaning in the work, which of course fits in with the illogical and nonsensical works Dada artists produced. The next three pieces are by Henri Matisse, who you might remember was a Fauve artist, well known for his use of wild colours in his paintings. Later in life, Matisse was confined to a wheelchair because of stomach cancer, and so painting and sculpture were very difficult. This piece is called The Snail and is in the Tate Modern in London. The name is thought to come from the fact that the paper in the centre is arranged in a spiral-like fashion and reminded Matisse of the snail's shell. Matisse would get his assistants to paint large pieces of paper for him, and he would spend time cutting out shapes and arranging them. Matisse had used collage before he was unwell for the scenes of an opera he designed, but when he was ill he did collage mostly, initially working small, but eventually his works, which he called his cutouts, would fill the walls of the big rooms of his studio. Kurt Schwitters, who, like Hannah Höch, is a German artist and was actually about the same age, he was also influenced by Dadaism. He created assemblages, which is a variation on collage where the objects stuck down are mostly three-dimensional material, bits of wood and metal, for example, rather than two-dimensional materials like pieces of paper and photographs. In this first piece, you can see there are also paper, bits of wood, and even sections of the piece have been painted. So this might be also described, as well as being an assemblage, as being a mixed media piece of work. Kurt Schwitters' assemblages are often quite small, smaller than even an A4 piece of paper. He frequently called these his Merz pictures. The term Merz comes from letters printed on a scrap of paper used in one of his early assemblages. Man Ray is an extremely well-known American photographer. Born in 1890, he is remembered mostly for his fashion and portrait photography, although he considered himself a painter. He is also known for his photograms, where he would arrange objects like for a collage or an assemblage, but instead of sticking them down, would expose them onto light-sensitive photographic paper to produce these striking negative images he called photograms. Nick Gentry is a British artist born in 1980 and working in London. He arranges or collages materials that have been used to record things in the past. Objects like computer discs and records, CDs, film negatives, and even X-rays have been used in his work to produce these powerful portraits. As well as collaging these objects, Gentry also paints areas of the picture, so one could describe his work as also being mixed media. The next three pieces are by another British artist called Peter Blake. He's quite a bit older than Nick Gentry and is of the same generation as David Hockney, and was also a British pop artist. One of his best-known pieces was a collage for the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's album, and in the background you can see images of famous people throughout history, everyone from Karl Marx to Marilyn Monroe and Oscar Wilde. I wonder how many you can recognise. Peter Blake also did album covers and record covers for bands like The Who, and even the cover for the charity album by Band-Aid, Do They Know It's Christmas. Peter Blake would also paint his own individual pictures, cut them out and arrange them or collage them together, as can be seen in this example. This is the artist Peter Blake. The Spanish artist Pablo Picasso is widely regarded as inventing collage. He was the first one to actually cut things out and stick them down on his artwork using pieces of paper and wallpaper and even bits of newspaper to cut out shapes, perhaps in the shape of musical instruments like in this piece, and use them as part of his artwork. This was seen as revolutionary at the time. Picasso was always looking at new ways to work and wanted to change art, and in inventing collage he certainly did so. Raoul Haussmann, like Kirchwitters and Anna Huch, was another Dada artist, so you can see that collage was a common technique used by the Dadaists. Like Anna Huch, Raoul Haussmann used photo montage to create these Dadaist images. The last collage is a self-portrait Haussmann produced. These next three pieces are by the British artist Richard Hamilton. He was a pop artist like David Hockney and Peter Blake. He actually also did an album cover for the Beatles' White Album, but this wasn't in a collage. This is one of his most famous pieces of work, and although he uses photo montage to create the work, it seems to make more sense than the photo montage Dadaist works by artists such as Hannah Huch and Raoul Haussmann. Richard Hamilton used a combination of oil paint and coloured paper in his work, so in that way he works in similar materials to that of Picasso, although Hamilton's style of work is completely different. So the last artist we are going to look at is an American artist born in 1925 called Robert Rauschenberg. Rauschenberg was a pop artist, and he's particularly well known for his combines. So he would combine everything from photos to three-dimensional objects such as clothing or even stuffed animals and even tubes of paint, and stick these to his work. Rauschenberg never really explained what his work meant. It is for you to try to work out perhaps what they may mean. So hopefully by now you'll have a good idea of what collage is, and also know a variety of artists who commonly use collage in their work. You'll also be familiar, hopefully, with the different types of collage, whether it's the photo collages and the joiners produced by David Hockney, or photo montages which are often produced by the Dada artists, or the assemblages by Kurt Schwitters, or even the cutouts produced by Henri Matisse. You'll also hopefully understand that collage was first invented, if you like, by Pablo Picasso, and that Man Ray combined objects on photographic paper to produce these photograms. You know that many artists would use mixed media in their work along with collaged objects, and that Robert Rauschenberg produced combines where he combined lots of different objects together in his work. And I suppose the only final thing to mention is a type of collage which is called decoupage. Decoupage is more of a craft than an art, and it's the craft of decorating objects with cutouts, quite often cutout photographs and pictures, to make these objects more attractive.